Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be working on the typography unit, and we are going to be talking through some different tools that you might be able to use to help you through that process. There are a couple of things that I may show in mine that may look slightly different on yours, as mine is not as updated as yours is. But hopefully that it will be usable for you and helpful for you, and we will go through it. So in our last unit, we talked about the selection tools. In this unit, we are going to be talking through how to use some of those along with the text tools. You see how that works? So I have the same photo that we worked with in the last one. I'm going to now open a new canvas. Yeah. So this is the way that I like to do it. There's a couple other ways you can do it, but this is the way that works best for me. I will go to File, and then I'm going to go to I'm clicked on Chrome. I'll go to File, and then I'm going to go to New, and then it pops up with this little number. Move my face so you can see me. Okay. And on this, we have a couple of things for you guys to consider. All of these customs are not what would probably be on yours if you have not ever done this before. I have multiple times, so that's why I have all of these preset options. The first thing you want to do is rename your new canvas, and we're going to want to name it something that is easily rememberable. So we are going to name it the same thing that we name everything else: last name, first initial, underscore, and then the project title and period. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to make sure that I have my height and width set to inches. Pixels are going to be far too tiny. Pixels are the individual tiny little dots that are making up the light that projects your image. So often you'll hear things like pixelated or like low resolution. Those are talking about the amount of pixels in an image not being enough. We want to be focused on inches, and then we'll worry about the pixels in a second. You can change the size of your canvas to something that works best for you. I think I'm going to make mine 16, and then the height is going to be 12. So it's going to be a wider width, taller height. And then I'm also going to, I'll switch up my orientation like this. So that is landscape. I also want to then go down to where it says resolution. So as I mentioned, pixels per inch is going to be the amount of pixels that are going to be within those inches. So the resolution, if it's 300, there are 300 pixels in each inch of my 16 by 12 photo. This is a pretty good resolution. This is what I highly recommend. Moving on to the color options, because I print some of your work, I do prefer that you use the CMYK setting. If you use the RBG or any of the other ones, that's fine online, but when it goes to actually print, the printers have to convert that color profile, and occasionally it will change your colors, which is not always our favorite. I prefer that backgrounds stay on transparent so that way there's no confusion on what is directly in the background and how opaque everything is. And then you should be good to go. Okay, so now here it is. This is our plain canvas that doesn't have anything on it. And we know it doesn't have anything on it because of this like checkered pattern here. You also will notice when we are looking at our Photoshop that our layer 1 doesn't have a lock on it. Photoshop is encouraging you to put something on that canvas to help you out. In our last unit, we also talked about the eraser tool. Today, we're going to look at the brush tool. The brush tool, it works very similar to the eraser tool, but allows us to actually paint along with different opacities and things like that. We will be using this a lot in one of our upcoming units called Grime, or sometimes we're going to be doing Bikes Without Brakes and Altered Ego. So 3 projects. When you click on this button here, it'll pop up with the similar options to the eraser. The first thing that you're going to want to check for is the size of your brush. So if we are going to cover the entire canvas, we'd want a really, really big brush, which is what I'd like to do. Then we want to go to general brushes. This is what it opens up to look like. And we want to make sure that we have selected the hard round brush. Remember, the difference between a soft round brush and hard round brush is similar to chalk versus a marker. If you use chalk, you're going to get kind of like those like transparent kind of fluffy edges, similar to the way you see it here. Whereas a hard round brush is going to be kind of like if you took a marker. There's like a very clear defined edge to that mark that you made. So hard round brush. Then I'm going to go through and paint my canvas. Boom, 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 boom. It takes it a second. Mm. Okay. Now that I have my canvas a specific color, I wanted to show you how to change the color of your brush. So when you're on the brush tool, you can change the foreground color by clicking on it, and it opens up the color picker options. This will allow you to do any color of the rainbow. It also is going to allow you to individually see how the colors are broken up, as well as the CMYK profile on each of the colors that are chosen. And then last thing that's important to see here, other than just moving the thing around, it is going to give you the option to enter in the color code. So when it comes to computers and showing light that is specific colors, all of the hues have an individual color code. And that color code can be typed into that there. So if you've ever been into a coding class or you've ever used a website like Coolers, that all maybe you're familiar with the color code. If not, don't worry about it. It's a thing we'll get into later. You can also just choose from here and it'll adjust the code for you as well. So let's just say that I wanted to do this like atrocious pink. And then I'm going to do the same thing, coloring the whole canvas, one color, and I'm ready to move on. Now above where you see like the name of the title of the thing that I just opened, you will also notice I have other things opened. So these are kind of like windows in a browser, and so you can actually toggle in between them just by clicking those windows. To get this image onto my other canvas, I'm going to be using a new tool. Some of y'all might have discovered it when we were working with our selection tools. This is our rectangular marquee tool. When you click on the rectangular marquee tool and highlight over the object that you want, oh, sorry, try again. Okay, it highlights the whole entire area. And I have the marching ants, and because I went off the side of the canvas, there aren't marching ants on the other side. And then I'd copy it, go over to my other one, and paste it. Woohoo! You'll notice that the picture is bigger than the actual canvas that I have. That means that the picture is a higher resolution, or there is a, like the actual canvas itself is bigger than the canvas that I currently have. So in order to change the size of this, I'm going to do another recall from the last unit, and I'm going to free transform this. There's two ways to do this. I can go up to edit and then free transform, or I can just use the key command that is right there. So I'm just going to use this to resize the image, make it moderately close to what we're going for, and then hit OK. Following the resize of the image, I am going to be able to actually start putting type on the image. Remember, when you are putting type on the image, whether it's on a separate canvas or on the actual photo itself, I really want you guys to be careful to make sure that you're putting it in its negative space. We do not want to put things in busy areas because then it's hard to read. So I select the type tool, and you'll notice it's telling me I'm on the horizontal type tool. So there's also a vertical type tool, and if you are looking at your Photoshop and then there are two other options, this is the more updated version, there are two other ones that are involve masking, and it's a little advanced for us, so we're not going to get into that quite yet. Using the type tool, I'm going to draw a space about the size of my area, and then I am going to want to start typing in that area. you'll notice that the way it's highlighted green, that is where the actual text is. Now, because pink was the last color I used, it's the last color that was loaded onto my brush. So the type itself is also pink. If you were curious about this, another place you can find this is up at the top where you can see what color the type is. I'm going to change that color to something a little bit more legible like green. Now you can see that the font color has changed and it autofills with like a random thing of like mumbo jumbo. And then we can change our font. Change our text. So I'm wearing an Antisocial Social Club sweatshirt right now. So that's what I'm going to type in. Antisocial Social Club. And you can see it's quite small. So if I wanted to make this bigger, I could highlight the whole entire thing. And then I can go into where it has the little like point size, and I can make it larger. Maybe a little bit more large. Okay. And maybe I click off of it. And then I'm like, oh no, I misspelled social. So I need to go back in and correct the way that I spelled social. To go back into your text, all you have to do is either click on it once or twice. And then when you go to do that, it should let you edit it. Now, if you've made any like transformations to your text, it does make it more difficult to get into it. So for instance, if I like warped my text or something like that, I would need to click on the individual line that the baseline used to be on instead of the new warp. So I will go through and respell. Maybe I want this part to be at the top and the second part to be at the bottom. So I can do that by hitting enter. And you can see that it is spaced so that I cannot see it anymore. So I should be able to adjust the size of my text box so I can see it again. Maybe I want to have one top part a different font than the other font. So I can change my font by going to the top here. And you should be able to see where it has like different fonts. Let's say I chose this one. And let's say in this one, I wanted to change maybe the bolding effect of it. I have that ability right next to it. The way that you know if you can change like the style of a certain font or if the font has more styles, then is this little arrow right here. So whenever you see that versus this without an arrow, you know you can change it from like bold to italics or whatever you're really working with. Okay. I can also move my font around. Those little purple, like pink lines that you have there are going to help you lock it into the middle and keep it into place. I always like to tell students that you want about the size of your image, or not image, size of your text distance away from your image. So kind of like letting, but slightly different. And then once you've got that, those are the main things that people want to do with the text. There are a couple of other small things, like if you wanted to warp your text, this button up here is in charge of warping your text. When you click on this, it will give you different options to warp it, and you can see what that looks like. So for example, an arch, and then you can change like the amount that it's arched, and it will preview it there for you before you hit like yes or no. It can give you distortions, so like directions of which it is arched. Once you've played around with it, you can, change things even more drastically by changing it to a different one or switching the way that it's warped. And you can have some fun with that. Just remember, there's a lot that you can do on Photoshop, but not everything should be done on Photoshop. So for example, even though you can put something on a pink background with a crazy little font and a warp, and it's a great demo to explain it that way, doesn't necessarily mean you should do all of those things. I would do what's best for your image. So considering the personality of the quote that you're using, considering the personality of the photo and pairing that quote with the photo, and then along with all of that together, considering a thoughtful color palette instead of just going willy-nilly and like picking a random pink to go with an otherwise really pretty picture. Other than that, those are going to be the main things that you need. If you have any questions, we are here for you. Please feel free to email or Canvas message, and we will be right there for you. Thanks so much.